we're all sort of kind of under this constant assault of messages and manipulation.
Craig, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me back.
Okay, so you've launched a new baby, a startup called Indicator. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Indicator is a publication, I guess, in the most general sense, but we are exclusively focused really on reporting on different types of digital deception. So there's me and my partner, Alexios Manzarlis, who's based in the US. And so we're doing reporting on scams, on different types of disinformation, on the way big digital platforms are being manipulated, really trying to think about the way our digital information environment is being abused, being manipulated in different ways to spread false information, steal money from people, all of these different kinds of things.
You mentioned digital deception. Why that word and what exactly does it mean?
So I've spent about 10 years looking at sort of different ways the information environment is changing and being abused. And I used to use terms a lot like disinformation, misinformation. I sort of helped coin and popularize the term fake news, unfortunately, which got taken over by Donald Trump. And so, part of this process is really starting, just like my lens of it widened and widened in the sense that a lot of times it was initially about hoaxes or scams, so something that was false or misleading. But we're talking about an information environment that is like really fundamentally being manipulated in so many different ways that we tried to think about a larger term, which was digital deception. And that could not just be the information you're seeing, but different ways that engagement is being faked. So you look at a video and you see, oh, it's got 5 million views, this must be really interesting. But that can be manipulated. So there's lots of different ways to deceive. It's not just about true or false.
So we are being deceived. And do you think that deception has gotten worse?
Unfortunately, I do. And I think that's one of the reasons why I felt like it was the right time to launch a publication that was just focused on this. It is so big and so varied that honestly, I just still don't have enough time to cover all the things I would want to. And
us too.
Yeah, you can relate. And so part of it is, of course, we all have these devices in our pocket, extremely powerful, give us access to tremendous amounts of information, connect us to social networks that are global. And so we have the advantage of all of this information and of being connected and of posting and not just consuming, but also publishing. But that just completely shifts the way information moves and it's created and who sees what. And so now the game for a lot of people, whether they're financially motivated or political partisans or a state-backed actor, for them it's about trying to get that information and to move and persuade people in the ways they want to, earn money from them, get them to change their minds, their point of view, even just, subtly market a legitimate product. We're all sort of kind of under this constant assault of messages and manipulation.
And it only gets more complicated with AI. So it can be AI, but maybe it's more than that?
One of the things about AI that's very game-changing is the ability to just generate huge amount of information in a really trivial amount of time. So in the past, if I wanted to generate a bunch of images and video to kind of deceive people or what have you, I might need to know Photoshop, need to know video editing, and now I just go in and I send a bunch of prompts, and stuff that might have taken, days or weeks and needed expertise to produce, I can do in minutes or hours. And that is a really game-changing scenario for anyone who is trying to deceive others.
One of the scary examples of that has been Grok's AI assistant. Yes. Tell me about that a little bit. Like, what have you seen and what worries you?
Yeah, so Grok is an AI tool. If you've heard of, ChatGPT or things like that, it's similar. It's kind of a chatbot. But the difference with Grok is that it is built into X, which used to be known as Twitter. So that's a fairly big social platform, fairly global. And it and Grok and its parent company, xAI, are all owned by Elon Musk. So you have the richest man in the world with his own social network, with its own AI. And what's been happening in recent weeks, basically as we got over the Christmas break and into the new year, is that people have been using Grok to basically remove the clothing or to kind of partially undress people. And that may sound kind of crazy. It's like, wait a minute, how is a chatbot undressing people, right? And so, for example, Sabrina Carpenter, one of the biggest pop stars in the world, she shared a new photo of hers recently. And underneath that, with Grok, you can basically reply to a photo and tag Grok and say, hey, Grok, what about this? You can ask it a question. You can ask it to do something. And so a lot of accounts have been out there under the photos of women, whether they're celebrities or just regular folks, saying, Grok, put her in a bikini. Grok, put her in a dental floss bikini. Grok, put her in a saran wrap bikini. Grok, take her clothes off. And chatbots are supposed to have rules and guidelines that prevent them from doing things that are abusive or illegal. And Grok just doesn't seem to have them. And so we've got tons and tons of examples of Grok generating what is, arguably non-consensual intimate imagery of women all over the world at a massive pace. There was actually a recent study done that found Grok was generating almost 7,000 of these types of images, on an hourly basis. So the scale, again, of AI, of something abusive like this is just unbelievable.
And yet, nothing is stopping it, Craig. Why?
Yes. Well, this shouldn't happen, I guess, is the first thing we should say. Again, the companies that build these tools are supposed to have guardrails built into them. And they're also supposed to prevent these tools from breaking the law. And there are absolutely laws in many countries around the world about the creation or spread of non-consensual intimate imagery, meaning it's imagery that could be someone naked, could be someone in, a state of undress. And if they are not consenting to the creation or sharing of that image, then that is illegal in a lot of countries, including Canada. We have laws against that.
And yet we still see it online.
And we see it online because, the people who build these tools, they have to build the guardrails in. And as Grok was being used to generate massive amounts of non-consensual imagery of users, Elon Musk was tweeting jokes about it. He did not seem to take it seriously at all. X itself and the company behind Grok have, as of this moment, not really made any kind of real public statement saying, hey, we're sorry, we're looking into this. And so it appears that not only did they not build the guardrails in to start, once this started being used, they didn't seem to really do much to stop it. I did see some accounts that were asking Grok to generate these types of images getting removed and suspended, but there has been nothing overall saying, hey, we're working to stop Grok from doing this.
Do you know anyone, Craig, that has personally been affected by this?
So I haven't met any individual victims, but one person we did interview at Indicator towards the end of last year is a lawyer who's representing a young woman, a teenager in the United States, who had this happen to her. A classmate of hers at her high school created, using an AI tool, non-consensual nude photos of her. And those started to be spread around. You can imagine the experience for someone.
Yeah, what does that do to a young woman's life?
I mean, in the court filings and in what this unnamed person has said it is absolutely a violation. They feel just completely violated, as if it had been like a real photo that had actually, they had taken and shared with someone in confidence being spread. Because it is a sort of virtual or deepfake or AI photo, I don't think it changes the level of trauma for the victims of this. And so to see, for example, Elon Musk trivializing it like it's a joke, when you have women who are being, generated in bikinis and in, non-consensual situations, really feeling the trauma from this is really concerning. And so it is a serious thing. And there are laws against the non-consensual sharing of intimate imagery. But where it's a bit of a gray area is those laws, because they were passed, in this case of Canada, is like, in some cases like 10 years ago, they don't specify virtual or AI or synthetic imagery. And so we're in a bit of a gray area where, yes, the sharing of non-consensual intimate imagery is a criminal offense in Canada federally, but we don't actually know whether that law would hold up in court when it comes to AI-generated images.
Since we recorded this episode, there's been massive global backlash. Grok has restricted some of its undressing features, but there are reportedly still ways users can generate sexualized images. This month, Canada and the United Kingdom have launched investigations into Grok, while Malaysia and Indonesia have blocked the AI assistant.
Going beyond just Grok, we know that tech that's misleading people is becoming pervasive, but is it also becoming more legitimate?
This was when we kind of looked back at 2025 and said, what were the trends around digital deception? It was a really depressing year because I think it was a year that I saw digital deception more legitimized and put in front of more people than ever before. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So number one is, we kind of started the year in January 2025 with Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Meta, doing a video saying, hey, we're getting rid of the fact checkers we've been working with in the US. And not only that, he said they've been biased, and he said it hasn't worked, and he also said that they were going to roll back other systems that kind of automated look for content to see if any of it violates Meta's policies or laws. And he said, we've been too restrictive, we need more free speech, we're going to roll these back. And so really, in a lot of ways, whether Mark Zuckerberg personally sort of believed those things or not, the reality is that they recognized Donald Trump was coming into power. He has, painted people who are fact checkers or people who are investigating the information environment as censors. And so it was really kind of a bending the knee moment to the incoming Trump administration. And so that started, and that made it more pervasive.
So you think it was getting rid of the fact checkers on Meta was the starting point for people to do whatever they wanted?
It was a signal that, hey, what's been going on for the last 8 or 9 years is changing, and we're going to pull back, and you can kind of do more than you used to be able to do. So the groundwork was laid for people who want to deceive, for people who want to manipulate our digital environment. It was, hey, it's easier to do. And on top of that, all of these companies, these big platforms, they're building their own AI tools to generate images and video. And they are all in a big race to get as many people to adopt them as possible. And so not only were those kind of guardrails removed or rolled back in some ways, people were also given more tools to create more convincing fakes and impersonation videos, and to be able to do that. And so that's a recipe where you're just going to see more of this, and we absolutely did as a result.
So who's responsible for this, Craig? Like, is it the platforms? Is it us? Is it governments? Like, who is responsible for this mess that we're in?
Yeah, look, I think there's a shared responsibility here. But when you think about the big actors, at the end of the day, a company like Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, all these different products, they have a huge amount of power and influence over what people, not just in the US or in Canada, but around the world, the information they're seeing, they're sharing, what they're encountering, how they're interacting with each other. And so obviously they're supposed to be adhering to laws. So our governments have responsibility.
The laws are slow
to pass laws, but it's very hard to keep up. And also, look, it's easy to pass a bad law in this area because, as you've mentioned, things move very quickly. So you might go in with good intentions of trying to stop non-consensual intimate imagery, of trying to stop deceptive marketing that steals money from people or scams them. But you could pass a law that ends up being used to actually silence people and censor people. So it is difficult. And in the meantime, into that breach, the lack of action by governments, these companies are able to just kind of do what they want and go out and try to get as much market share as they can.
I'd like to hope that Canada was better, but how are we doing?
I mean, look, I think we are behind in a lot of these areas. And in some ways, you might not want to be first because you could pass a bad law. But the most aggressive regulator of big tech right now is the European Union. One of the big things that happened there was kind of the full effect of what's called the Digital Services Act, which is a law that does a bunch of things, but one of them is it puts more transparency requirements on these platforms to actually share data about the content they're removing, why they're removing it, and other information. And I think if we think about laws that could do the least amount of harm, but also make things a little bit better, that element of forcing transparency and disclosure from these major companies about, hey, who are you selling ads to, and what content are you removing, and making them report and actually be transparent about what they're doing is a really good first step, because they operate at such a scale, it's very hard to get our arms and minds around exactly what's going on there.